Hi everyone, it's Nick. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, in today's video, we are doing Roast My Space. This is a series on my channel where you all send me pictures of your own actual real homes and I sort of weigh in and give my thoughts and roast them gently because, you know, we gotta be nice about it. I've done this a few times on my channel and you guys all seem to love it. So if you love this series, I link to the playlist at the end. You can watch a bunch of these. And I also include some mood boards along the way with links of everything down in the description for you to check out. So I give some advice, we give some examples of some options for people to consider, and we just get into it. So let's get going. Okay, first up here I have Martha. Now Martha sent this in to my channel memberships. So I have channel memberships here on YouTube, and if you want to join, you can go do that. I do like once a month where people send me photos and then like I actually do it live and I go through and kind of do something similar to this. And then I'm also doing some exclusive videos for channel members in the new year, which I'm excited for. But Martha's a channel member, so I've already got over this with her live, but I'm gonna do it here on Roast My Space for funsies. Martha lives in this home here. This is her outside. She loves her garden. She loves her patio. She loves all the color that's there, but she's finding that everything else in her space is feeling really beige and really like that dark sort of heavy brown. And she's wondering, am I just destined for a life of brown, or is there some way to make it a little bit livelier, a little bit more fun? Yes, Martha, I think there is. It happens to a lot of people. You got like these kind of crazy pops of color, but they look a little out of place and they don't look very well integrated compared to the rest of the furniture. So, okay, let's go over my thoughts here, Martha. Let's start with the dining area. Okay, so I would say right off the bat, well, looking overall at some of the furniture, like a lot of it's pretty basic and there's not a whole lot of texture and nothing kind of, there's no a whole lot of shape or anything that's making them sort of really interesting or exciting. And that's generally okay if you have some really simple pieces, but it's always nice once in a while to have something that's a little bit more interesting, just a little bit more shape and just kind of, you know, a little bit more interesting than just kind of your basic brown wooden furniture you have here. So in the dining area, that is no exception. I think that it's looking a little drab because we basically got beige walls and we've got brown, simple, basic furniture and a very basic sort of brown rug. Yes, you have that art piece in the background, which adds a little bit of color, but I do think there's an opportunity here to maybe have a little bit more fun. So first of all, I think that the dining table and chair set feels quite undersized for this space. Looks like you have like a leaf in there, so there might be an opportunity to make it a little bit bigger. Even still, I would love to see something a little bit larger in that area, just because when you look at the rest of the dining area that you have there, this just looks really undersized. And it might not even necessarily mean that you're like, but Nick, I don't need a bigger table. Yeah, I understand that, you know, you might just be fine with having a small table for four, but it might just not maybe make a ton of sense because it doesn't fit with the space that you actually have. So I would consider blue sky here. I mean, you might not want to change it out. I get that. You might not want to change out your furniture, Martha, but I would consider getting something a little bit more appropriately sized for that space. This just feels a little undersized for me. I would love to see that a little bit bigger. The walls are what I call nicotine beige. I know I've mentioned nicotine. You know exactly what I mean with nicotine beige. You might not be a smoker, Martha, but your walls say you are. And I would just consider something a little bit more fresh, a little bit more bright, maybe a little bit more interesting. Yes, you can go with white. I like Simply White's my favorite paint color. Well, white paint color, I wouldn't say it's overall. Or if you want to get crazy, it could be interesting to start playing around with color on the walls, painting it something like green or blue or something that's a little bit more interesting than just going with white and beige. But I think this very sort of nicotine beige look that you've got going on the walls isn't also really doing yourself a lot of favors because it's just not an interesting backdrop for the rest of the furniture. So maybe you might want to consider white, something a little bit crisper, a little bit brighter, a little bit more fresh and airy, or going for the colored route. That's also really fun too. But I would say getting a different table set that's maybe a little bit larger might be a good idea. The rug itself is fine. It's again feeling very beige and very sort of bland as it sits on top of very beige, very bland tile. So that's another opportunity there that you could have a little bit more fun. You could play with something with a little bit more texture if that's interesting for you. Because again, right now there's not a whole lot of texture that's happening in the space. If you're not making it, you know, if you're not making your furniture interesting or your space interesting through color, then maybe make it interesting through shape or make it interesting through, you know, texture. And you're not really doing any of those things. It's always just sort of the same brown and the same boring shape and the same sort of boring texture. So that's probably contributing to your challenge. Now, again, if you want to stick to these neutrals, the browns and beiges, you don't necessarily have to go for a whole ton of color if you don't want to, but just remember that when you do that, you need to sort of have some texture in there to make a space feel a lot more interesting, right? We saw like the whole, as these neutral spaces have been trendy for a number of years now, you know, fabrics like Sherpa fabrics and boucle and stuff, although, you know, you might not have to like them, but they are a little bit more interesting because if you're not not making it interesting through color, you're trying to make it interesting through texture. And that's sometimes where these neutral spaces are successful, is they're using sort of really interesting shapes, for example, in their furniture, or they are using texture to make it a little bit more interesting. So I would advise that since you're not making it interesting through any of those three ways, find ways to do that. Moving into your living area, I think I've got some challenges here with the furniture placement that I think maybe you might want to consider. So everybody's not really facing anybody. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that that little footstool off of that chair, which is in the white leather, which you know I'm not a fan of, but you knew that already, that piece, I don't love footstools or ottomans necessarily, and not that one most of all. So I would just consider that, you know, finding, it's just no one's really facing each other. Like, I just feel like if everybody's sitting in all those different seats, everybody has to sort of contort their body into weird ways to be able to actually see each other. It's like, hello, Jim. And it's like, everybody should just naturally face each other because that's how the room is set up, because you picked the right furniture in the space that's gonna make sense for where everybody's sitting to converse with one another, which is really what a living room is for. You know, take those two chairs that are similar, maybe try just sort of facing them off so that they're a 90-degree angle from the sofa. That might all of a sudden, that might make a big difference to make the room feel a little bit more structured. Everybody's able to face each other, and it's a much better space plan than sort of everybody kind of angled in weird, kooky ways. Also, you don't have a coffee table, which I would love to see a coffee table there. A couple of options. I'm gonna present some options in a second here that I think could be really interesting. Also, the TV stand, I'll come back to the coffee table. The TV stand is undersized for the TV. I say the media console should be at least the size of the TV above it. To be honest with you, it actually should be bigger. I would say that the TV being around 2/3 the size of the media console underneath it is a good number to shoot for. So if you're not going to change the TV, then consider that media console should be a little bit bigger so that the TV is 2/3 of the width of that media console. And actually, to be honest with you, I actually really do like that media console. I think it's a really cool piece. That could maybe be a good coffee table. You know, you might want to double check your measurements there, but that could actually be really cool to sort of repurpose that as a coffee table and get a media console that again has a little bit more presence and isn't going to have like the TV, sort of a little dinky TV sitting over top of it. So I'm going to show some inspirational images here of sort of things that are sort of a similar style to you, using lots of sort of the darker wood tones, but maybe using sort of reclaimed wood, some rough woods, feels a little bit rustic, right? But maybe use some incorporation of color in there as well. I think these two sort of like this image here with these two white sofas, you know, this space, you've got texture in the rug, you've got white walls, right? Which just sort of provide like a nice fresh sort of contrast to the rest of the brown and beige that's sort of happening in the space. And then you've got sort of interesting shape, and I don't love the wiggles. You guys know that. It's not my personal preference, but I will say those little wiggle candlesticks that they have there, that's more interesting, and it's just like an interesting shape as opposed to something that would be really boring, like just kind of a straight line. So using some opportunities there through texture, a little bit through color, and definitely through shape to create a space that feels a little bit more interesting there. But there's lots of opportunities for you to use color as well, if that's what you choose to do in order to incorporate in there, that would just be a little bit more fun than just sort of the beige brown. So I think that's really ultimately where your challenge is, Martha, is just how can you make a space feel more interesting, and how do you do that through the various different, you know, uniting them through color, through texture, through shape, through design style, whatever, that makes it more interesting than everything just being brown and beige. I feel like you chose some very safe things, and I think there's now some opportunities, maybe if you want to make some swap outs, to make something that makes it a little bit, just some little conversation starters thrown in there, Martha, as opposed to, well, there's no conversation starters really happening here. And I think that's really what we're missing. So definitely a lot of opportunity here. And again, we can just like move around the space planning so that it fits. Just always be mindful of like where everybody is sitting to make sure that you're building the space plan that's gonna make sense for people to have that sort of center. I think a coffee table might really help there, just because whether you repurpose the media console or not, just because again, that might really help ground the space on that rug. And then you build the rest of the furniture pieces around it. Right now, they're just all floating around there talking to nobody. And I think we need to work on that. Okay, next up on my list is Charlotte. Now, Charlotte here is a university student. She is a second year university student, and this is her space. She really has chosen this sort of like pink and green. She chose the paint color Southern Comfort, which is actually a really cute little color there. It reminds me actually of, what is that, First Light, I think, or something, which was Benjamin Moore's color of the year like 5 years ago or something, 4 or 5 years ago. This really sort of soft millennial pink. She chose that for her sort of accent wall or feature wall that she chose to put behind the sofa. And then she's got a green rug, which I actually quite like the rug. I think it's kind of cool. She's got like 2 different tones that are happening there. I also knew that Charlotte was a university student. Charlotte, you didn't even need to tell me because you used a KALLAX unit as a media console. Nothing tells me that you're under the age of 26 more than a KALLAX unit being used as a media console. I have seen this 1,000 times. So you didn't need to tell me that, Charlotte. I already do. But good for you. I get it. It's probably about what, $14 or something at IKEA, and it's a perfectly functional unit. It is an open unit, which of course, you know, for my purposes, we'll start there. That is an open shelving unit that I personally don't really love because it doesn't really hide all your ugly crap. Now, you don't look like you have a ton of ugly crap, which is great, but I just think a closed media console makes more sense in my personal opinion. That is 9 times out of 10 always going to be my preference. Also, you have the same problem that Martha has, which is that KALLAX media console is undersized for the TV that you have above it. I, again, would recommend that you go for a media console that is like the TV should be about 2/3 the size of the media console below it, and you have not done that. It looks again like it's around the same size. So definitely look at getting, it looks out of proportion. Do you know what I mean? Like the TV looks like it's floating over top of this KALLAX unit here in a way that isn't really working for me. So I think if you extend that KALLAX unit, something a little bit slimmer, and again, ideally, if you're going for something vintage, you can shop around trying to find something, but it'd be cool to get like a really neat kind of low sort of media console as opposed to the KALLAX unit, which isn't really a media console. Like, can I say that? Like, it's not really a media console, especially for the TV size. It also sits quite high off the ground, so it's just not really working for me. What else have we got here? Now, I think in terms of, let's talk about that pink color. Let's talk about the Southern Comfort. I don't like pink as I sit here with a pink sweater. I don't really like pink. I appreciate that I'm a hypocrite. I get that. But I would say that I actually don't really hate this color. And to be honest with you, well, like I think you like it and that's all that matters. I mean, I don't have to live there. So I would say with that Southern Comfort on the wall, I think it's worth considering painting all the walls here, right? Like this is a soft, light enough color that I think it can absolutely be a main wall color. And I don't think you necessarily need to be so scared to just keep it as a feature wall or sort of an accent wall. My personal take on this, and this is just, you know, my own personal view, but you're here on my YouTube channel, so you're gonna get it. You know, everyone has their own opinion. This is mine. Sometimes what people do is they choose like a crazy color as an accent wall. They wouldn't, or like a wallpaper, and they wouldn't dare put it throughout the rest of the space. But they're like, I like that wallpaper, or I like that crazy color, but I don't want to put it everywhere. So I'm just gonna put it on one wall, and then I'm gonna paint all the other walls white. And the problem with that is that it doesn't often really look good, and it's usually incredibly high contrast, and it just doesn't really make sense. I think what would be better is if people choose a wallpaper or a color that's a little bit softer, a little bit more manageable, something that you think you could make work for a long time, and choose something that's more main wall friendly, and then do that in the entire room. Do you know what I mean? Like if your wallpaper is so kooky crazy that you can't stand to think of it in the rest of the room, then maybe don't put it in the rest of the room and don't use it at all, and choose something a little bit more plain, a little bit more subtle, a little bit more your taste long term, and then do the whole room in it, as opposed to just kind of chickening out and doing the one wall and then panicking. You know what I mean? Which is what people tend to do, which I get. I've done it before as well. So Charlotte, I think for you, this wall color isn't actually that kooky crazy. Like I think it's main wall friendly. I think you can do every wall in this pink color, and I think it would look super, 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 super cute. I do like that you're playing with some pink and green, which is wonderful because pink and green are actually really like complementary colors, right? So green and red sit opposite each other on the color wheel. Pink is just a heavily tinted red. So there's definitely pink and green work really, really well together as a color scheme. Lots of really cool wallpapers I know in that color, cool art prints that are in that color, furniture that comes in those color combos, and it works really, really well. Pink and green works really well. So I think if you like this color scheme and you've got some pieces that are already there, I say continue it and really lean into it a little bit more than you already are. So we're cleaning up some of that clutter, of course, maybe doing some furniture changes, maybe some space planning changes, we'll get there in a second, but really committing to a little bit more of that cohesive color scheme built around sort of different tints, tones, and shades with the sort of pink and green, coral, minty sort of area of the color wheel. And I think that's really fun. I think you can have a lot of fun there and create something really cool. Like here's an inspiration image, which was actually like, I think is perfect for you as a really great jumping off point because it uses the pink and green color scheme. And it's also basically your room. Like it's pretty close. The window's in the right spot. They got the furniture placements in the right spot. It looks pretty similar to your room as is. So it's a kind of a really cool jumping off point for you. But notice this is like so much more interesting and cool because they really committed to the pink, and they're also using different tints, tones, and shades of pink throughout the space. They've also got the same going on with green. They got some neutrals in there. They got some whites, some beiges, and all that's having a really good time. Some art prints on the back wall with some, of course, accent lighting, which is amazing. So they're using lighting to be able to accent all their art pieces on the back wall. Very beautiful space and a great, I think, jumping off point for you and your space as well. Now, in terms of space planning, I said I would come back to that. What's going on with that little grandma chair sitting in the corner? It reminds me in the hotel rooms. I'm not going to say the name of it because I don't want to get demonetized from people. I don't like to say it, but you know that like chair that's like creepy and it's in the corner of hotel rooms and you're like, what's that chair for? It sort of feels a little bit that way for me, Charlotte. I just don't know who that, I'm just going to say it feels like an interview. Like if I was sitting in that chair in the corner while everybody else is sitting on the sofa, I would feel like I've been a bad friend and I'm made to sit in the naughty corner because I'm just not able to join the rest of the group. It's not on the rug. It's not able to watch television. It's way in the corner away from all the party that's happening over on the sofa. I don't don't know what's happening with that chair. I feel like we need to bring her into the conversation and make that make a little bit more sense. You know, you might want to try putting that, let's say, perpendicular to the sofa. That might make sense, and that way it can still also be able to see the television, which again, we're going to be right sizing the television sort of area over there with that media console. So definitely a lot of fun, I think, to be had in this space. I think just lean in a little bit more into the color scheme you've already got, start finding some great, wonderful, cool vintage pieces that are out there. There's so much cool stuff, especially for decor, that's going to be really budget friendly. And yeah, and have some fun. I think you're on the right track here though. Good job. Okay, and then next up here we have Liam. Now Liam is a soldier. He is a single soldier in the US military. Thank you for your service, Mr. Liam. And he describes his space here that he has in the barracks. Listen, I'm not gonna lie to you. I did not know that the barracks in the US military was a part of the nicklewis demographic. I'm glad everybody's enjoying the videos. I just love seeing like where my videos go around the world. I just love that. People email me from all over the world about that they watch my videos, and I always think that's so much fun because I just think, really? I just thought it was just 35-year-old women from Los Angeles in the suburbs that watch my videos. But apparently soldiers in the military also watch my content. So thank you so much, Liam, for that. Okay, let's get to your space. First of all, can we talk about the lighting in here, Liam? What is going on? Do I have to call the Pentagon in order to, I don't have many connections to the Pentagon. I've got a few, but like I need to call about the lighting. What is this? This is not, this lighting, no. Here's the thing, you're of course very limited to what you can do because you're in a barracks. You don't really have full control of your space, and you know that. You don't need me to tell you that. But I can only imagine that you are quite limited in terms of what you're gonna be able to do. So I'm gonna have to kind of give my advice tailor a little bit to that. So lighting. Although you're probably not gonna be like, let's renovate and put this on dimmers. I doubt you can really do that. So what are we talking about here? Bringing in maybe more light, turn off that big light and just start maybe using other lights around the space. Like you've got one light in there, but maybe I think there's an opportunity to use some task lighting or ambient lighting in other areas as well. You could get a floor lamp perhaps, maybe you could get another table lamp to go on that desk, something that you can sort of have a shade, have it diffused, and maybe a little bit of a warmer light that you can use, and maybe not use as much of the big light and use sort of those smaller sort of task and ambient lights that you might have around the space that might make things instantly better and an upgrade without necessarily having to commit wholesale to like changing out furniture that, let's be honest, you can't actually really change out. Window treatments. Can we add window treatments? I'm not sure. Is that crazy? I mean, I don't know. Are the guys at the barracks gonna make fun of you when you bring in your when you bring in your window treatments? Tell them to watch my videos because you know what? They should also be changing out their window treatments too. I think there's an opportunity there to play with window treatments if you are able to. Again, I'm not really sure exactly what you are allowed to change out, but that's an option. If it were me, I would be asking about that, but I'm also not in the military, obviously. I'm way too outspoken, I think, for that. What else can we do? Let's talk a rug. Could we put a rug here under this bed? I think we can. There's a lot of white. You know what I mean? Like there's the ceiling, the walls, and the floor. They're all kind of like white and gray. Is there an opportunity to break that up? I know you can't paint walls, definitely not ceilings, but is there an opportunity to cover some of it up with a rug? I think a nice rug underneath could really be an opportunity to add some color, some texture, and just break up some of that like white wall, white ceiling, white floor, white everything. Break that up a little bit and have a little bit of fun there. Different patterns that could be really cool you might want to explore. I think things like just more solid prints or even plaids might really make sense for you. I think there's some really cool patterns that are out there that feel that they make sense for a single guy. Listen, if you had your own place, I'd be like, let's put grass cloth on the walls, but you can't do that, okay? So here we are, we're gonna have to make do with what we have here. And there's some really cool textiles I think that you could make work, again, in something like a plaid or a solid print that might make a ton of sense. Stripes even could even work for you as well. Let's talk storage. What are our options here in terms of storage? I don't want to change a whole lot of your furniture here because I don't know exactly where you're at with that, but I do think that if you're able to put in any closed storage and you're able to store a lot of the extra stuff, some of that clutter, it might also alleviate, make the space feel a little bit more sort of just clean and orderly and a little bit less overstuffed, if that makes sense. So that plus some good lighting might make a huge difference for you as well. So I'm talking things like, yes, if you can add in furniture, so closed storage furniture would be great. Things like baskets, things like little organizers could make a lot of sense. You know, looks like you've also got kind of a vanity over in the corner, lots of stuff that's sort of sitting there on the countertop. Are we able to store that or even provide sort of the right sort of little baskets or, you know, little drawer systems or whatever that might make sense for you to put in there that are super portable. So you don't have to do any like built-ins or anything like that, but just some opportunity to store some of the stuff when not in use so that it doesn't feel as cluttered. By the way, having me on your television is adorable and that's wonderful. So thank you so much for that. By the way, if you're going to submit to roast my space at nicklewis.ca, here it is. Here's my email. Email me your spaces if you want to be featured here. Putting me in the background is a great start. I mean, that gets you noticed and it's probably going to get you on the channel. I'm not going to lie. So seeing me in the background, that's always fun. And then, you know, you got your art. I think you're being creative with your art placement. Just sort of using that little shelf there to put some art on the wall is cool. I mean, obviously it would be nice if you're able to hang it up, but I don't really know. That looks like it's, what is that? What is that wall? It looks like it's made of cinder blocks. I don't think you really have a whole lot of opportunity there to nail something in, but using that shelf, I think is kind of a nice way of sort of doing that. But I think, you know, oh, the ceiling fan and that lighting, this is gonna be 4/5 of your battle, which, you know, is usually the case when it comes to a lot of these spaces where you don't have a whole lot of control over what you're doing. Lighting can make a huge difference. Turning down that big light, adding sort of floor lamps and task lights and all the rest of it that you're able to sort of put on dimmers, ideally, because again, you can't put dimmers on the ceiling, but you can put maybe a dimmer on something like a floor lamp. And that right away with some warmer lighting is going to be more flattering for everything involved. So that plus a rug, plus some window treatments if we can do it, plus we're taking away some of those cluttered items and we're gonna put some clothes storage solutions, some baskets and things. And I think you're on your way. Good luck with that, Liam, and thanks for watching. Okay, so that's it for me for today, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you wanna see more Roast My Space, I love doing these because I love when you guys send me your spaces because it's just, as I said, so interesting to see who watches me from all around the world. I think that's so cool. So thank you all for watching, of course, and for sending in your spaces. And if you want to see more of them, here's a whole playlist of a bunch of these things. So go and check those out, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks, bye.